So today I'm showing you something that's slightly different. And it's different in that there's nothing that moves and there are no pistons or chassis or rotating things and nothing crazy about Create. The only thing about Create mod that we're using today is the stockpile switch, which I am now discovering how amazing this block is. So if you're interested in something that looks like this, that tells you exactly how many items you have in each one of these columns, stick around. So the design is extremely simple. Here we have these stockpile switches pointing at each one of these chests, and these are double chests just going to the back, and I'll show you in a second. And whenever a chest is completely full of items, the stockpile switch is going to send a redstone signal. And the way we do that is by putting the first arrow at the very end and the second arrow at the very beginning. What this does, or what this tells the stockpile switch, is that it will turn off, so there's no redstone coming out of it all the way until it's absolutely and completely full. So if we're putting a stackable item here and we have half a stack here, this thing would still be off. So essentially it's very accurate and it'll tell you exactly what's happening here. There are 6 ticks here, and each one of these ticks will light up with one of these rows. So you'll see, for example, if we go up here, we have 1 tick missing. That means it's just a part of the last row. And this one is about half, so we'll see that this is actually exactly half. So they're pretty accurate, and they'll tell you exactly what's happening in your stockpile. And they'll also send a redstone signal when full, which actually produced a very cool, happy accident. So let me show you what that is. So I was trying to save some space by putting the hoppers down here instead of putting them in the back, and then I realized that they're just sitting right next to the stockpile switch. So whenever the stockpile switch is at 100% and the redstone signal's coming out of it, this locker, well, the hopper, not the locker, will be locked. And so what this means is that we're only gonna lose one item. I don't know if you've worked with other storage silos before, but if you've worked with any of the vanilla silos, you'll know that the hoppers have to be full as well, which if it's non-stackable items, you'll take 5 stacks of that item stuck in the hoppers, so you won't get a very clear representation at the front. Not to mention that in vanilla storage systems, you have a single lamp for each one of the chests, so it only tells you when it's full, and not really all of this, it doesn't give you all of this information. And so when I did this and I found out the hoppers were getting locked, I was kind of shocked because I was getting ready. I had a bunch of hoppers in my inventory and I had content observers and redstone and wool, and I was really not sure how I'm going to make it work. But then turns out I don't really need to do anything. Now this is not all. There's one more cool thing about this system, which if you grab a redstone link right here, and place it on this front of the top storage stockpile switch. What this is going to do is this is going to send a signal anywhere you want to send it whenever this column is full. So where do I recommend you use this? I recommend you use this if you have a farm connected directly to this system. Let's say it's a cobblestone farm or an iron farm or gold farm. Make sure you put a clutch at the beginning of that farm so that you can turn the farm off whenever you need to, and then you just connect the receiver on the other end of this redstone link to the clutch on that farm. And so now you have a fully automated system where whenever your storage is full, you have your farm stopped. And if you're using just one chest for your farm, I still recommend using a stockpile switch with this setting just to make sure that the farm turns off whenever you're done filling stuff. And this will be a very nice thing to do if you're playing on a server or even if you're playing alone, because it's going to keep your world from lagging and you're not going to have random entities flying around, and nobody really likes that. Now there's another thing I'd like to tell you about this system is that if you do think of connecting this to a farm, I recommend you have a double chest up here. Oh god. Okay, so you put a double chest here, and that ensures that you have a buffer so that you're not throwing everything directly into a hopper and creating a backlog. This chest can be filled with stuff before things, go into the farm, and that'll give you some space between the system and your farm. I think this is everything about the system, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how to build a small replica of it so that you can go ahead and build it, so I don't need to give you the schematic for this massive thing, which you may or may not need, because one of the other cool things about this system is that it's expandable and it's really easy to do that. So it's really good to start with a small one and put all the stuff you have and then just keep adding to it as you go so that it doesn't end up being that expensive. So let me show you that right now. So believe it or not, we're only going to need 3 items to build this thing. It's just so simple, it's ridiculous. We're gonna have a double chest right here, and we point the stockpile switch at it, and it's pointing the right way. You gotta make sure that the white side, the little square, is pointing into the chest so that you can measure the contents correctly. Now we're gonna configure the stockpile switch by putting the first arrow at the end and the second arrow at the beginning, and we're gonna place a hopper going into the chest. And that's our entire structure. We just need to repeat it. And as you can see, the stockpile switch can also take a filter, so maybe you can be measuring only a certain item if you'd like to do that. But either way, we place this and everything is done. Now, one thing I recommend if you're building this in creative and, just so you can have a schematic instead of building the whole thing in survival, which is something I do a lot when playing with Create, you can actually right click, make sure that this is set up, and then you hold Control and press your middle mouse button or whatever your pick block button is. And now you've picked up the stockpile switch with the correct settings. Now, unfortunately, it's set facing the wrong way here, but as you can see, the stockpile switch is set up correctly and we don't need to keep setting them up. And you can always rotate it with a map called a wrench. But yeah, you see what I'm holding. So you can always rotate it with a wrench and make sure that it's facing the right way. And there's another thing, sometimes I really don't like it when the stockpile switch gets placed facing the wrong way and I have to move all of them with a switch, with a wrench. Okay, I keep calling it different things. I called it a map earlier, right? Anyway, I can just point at this block and place these like this by holding the shift button, and so that I make sure that everything is facing the right way, and then break these blocks. And the chests obviously don't have to be pointing in a certain direction, so if it's easier for you, you can do it like that. And that's really the entire system. Because if you look at, let's just finish it right here, and if you look at the system right here, it's just a double set of that thing right here. I have that, and then I have the column next to it, and that's all. So I think that this storage silo is really much more effective than a vanilla storage silo because it gives you a lot more details about what's happening, and it works with a lot less redstone. Okay, so we're here, and now we're going to test the system by placing a creative chest here, and let's make it a double one, and then we're going to place one here as well. And I'm using boats because, they're non-stackable, so this holding is going to be a lot faster. Because if we're using something that is stackable, it would take forever to do this. Now, as you'll see, the items are coming in, and each row, like I said earlier, represents a tick on the stockpile switch. So everything is filling up, and if you step away, you'll see it's a very clear and nice gauge. And if we go look at the hoppers in the back, we'll see that they'll have a maximum of 1 or 2 items stuck in there. So ideally we just have one. There's one here. Which is the other one? Is it this one? Or are these the 2 we're filling? Either way, everything just has 1, which is perfect. And just so you know, if we're using a stackable item, there's only going to be 1 left in the hoppers as well. We're not leaving a whole stack. So instead of filling the entire hopper with items like your regular storage system, as you see here, there's 1, and here there's nothing because they're filtering in. So until the chest is full, which is gonna take forever, we are not, or actually, yeah, they're coming in here. So this one has 1 because they're coming into this chest, and it's gonna take forever. So why don't we place a bunch of boats here? Let me place a bunch of boats. Place all of them. This is gonna go to a full stack, and now let's see how many are left here. Just 1 piece of cobblestone, and now we're filling this chest. So as you see, this system is very efficient and is gonna give you a very clear representation of the number of items you have in there. You can even set up some sort of counter where it's counting just how many columns is this? This 9? It's 9 columns, so 9 times 64, or 9 times 1 for non-stackable items, plus 1 for each hopper. So it's actually very easy to count it, and you'll know that all of your items are right here in the chest, and whatever you take from here, the bar is going to lower from the top. And if you connect it to the Redstone Link and automate your farms, that'll make it even better because you'll just see how your farms are doing, and you'll make sure, you can turn them off to make sure that you fill your chest, etc. So I think this came out pretty good overall. I wasn't very hopeful. I thought, it would come out being very simple and maybe not that different from a regular comparator silo system, but I think this came out very cool and useful. I actually really want to hear what you think about it and whether you'd use it, because this may be one of the most practical things that I've came up with on my channel so far. And if you have any suggestions or ideas for me to do related to this or not, just create mod in general, because honestly, I have the most fun when I'm working on a crazy machine that one of you suggested for me. So honestly, any idea you have, just throw it out there and I'll give it my best shot. Other than that, I think I've said everything I needed to about the storage silo, but if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'll make sure that I try to get to you as soon as possible. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider clicking the subscribe button so that you can check back later and see my future creations. And also, if you've enjoyed this video, consider clicking my channel name and look through the videos, because I've made a lot of videos about create mod and about how to do cool things here. So if you're new, just a thing to consider. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.